Welcome back to Two In A Pew Conversations on Faith and Creativity. I'm Moriah Domby, and I'm so excited about our guest today. She is a 19-time CMA Ontario Award winner, 3-time CCMA Award winner, including back-to-back Female Vocalist of the Year awards. She has won a 2020 Juno Award for Album of the Year, which for any artist and songwriter is an incredible accomplishment. She has a song out right now that's very powerful. We're going to talk a lot about that. And she's also heading on the road this fall with Landco. She made her Opry debut this April 11th. Just the list goes on and on of accomplishments. It's a vast and a long list that is amazing to look at, and I'm just thrilled to invite her in. I also know personally that she's a very generous and kind and warm person, and I'm thrilled to have her in the pew today. I want to welcome my friend and guest, Meghan Patrick.
Hi.
I am so glad that you're here doing this with me and having this conversation.
Me too.
Taking the time out of your crazy busy schedule.
Of course.
Which we were talking a little earlier about is extremely full. I mean, you're on the move.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot, and I have to remind myself that these are all things that I prayed for.
I want this. I want this.
I want this. I love my job. I don't need as much sleep as I think I do. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, no, it's been really an incredible year. And honestly, you know, I woke up this morning feeling a little tired. We were on the road all weekend, a lot of driving, and you know, I woke up and was feeling just tired and a little burnt out. And then you gave that intro, and it's like, I think it's good when you get into that headspace of just feeling really tired and wondering if what you're doing is working, to take a step back and, you know, look at where you came from and what you've accomplished. 'Cause it's so easy to forget, you know, to want something, to pray for something, to work for something. And then the second you get it, it's like it's already on to the next. And that's something my husband and I talk about a lot, trying to make sure that we really do celebrate the wins and allow ourselves time to like live in that moment before we just start thinking about the next thing.
Yeah, they really start adding up. And I know this is kind of what I just spoke on is kind of a highlight reel, obviously, of some really massive things. But you've had so many big, medium, small accomplishments along the way also, and taking that time to take stock and be grateful for those little steps. Because I know in a lot of ways you probably feel, I don't want to speak for you, but knowing you, I know that you feel probably in a lot of ways that you are just getting started too.
Oh yeah.
And you have so much to do and so many things that you want to share and ways you want to inspire people. So even with all this background of amazing things you've done, there's a lot more to come.
Oh, for sure.
And we're going to touch on a little bit of what's coming ahead, but I just want to dive in.
Let's do it.
Get in there.
Let's get right in there.
With a highlight reel like that, it could be easy to look at and say, wow, like she's done it all. She's got it all. But in many ways, looking back in your story, you've had a lot of setbacks along the way. There's been a lot of major moments that have, in my opinion, looking at it from the outside, shaped you and guided you towards the career that you're in right now in many ways. One of which, as some people probably know, but many maybe don't, that you started out really as a competitive snowboarder, as that as your main goal, even though you were in bands at a young age. But talk about that a little bit, how that shift happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, music has always been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, just because I kind of grew up like in a musical family. Not necessarily that everyone was musicians. My dad's a musician, you know, plays guitar. He's never done it professionally, just as a hobby. It's just something he loves. And, you know, we just had a lot of music playing in the house. Like, it was like the music that my parents listened to growing up was a big part of like shaping my musical tastes, and a lot of that music is very tied to memories of my childhood and stuff like that. And so it was just always around and like shaping my life, you know, from a young age. But I think, you know, both my parents neither of my parents really came from money, and they were both the first people in their family to like even go to college or university or anything like that. And so, you know, they put a high value on education, and you know they both felt very strongly about wanting to give me better circumstances and some of the way what they had, you know, and so I kind of just never really thought about music as being a very like safe or
like
realistic
career,
thing to pursue as a career. I just knew that I liked it. And I also like grew up in a small town where it's not like I was surrounded by other people that were like making real careers out of music. In fact, I was surrounded by a lot of people that weren't, that really love music, but weren't really like making careers out of it, you know? And, but I was always an athlete, and my family was big in winter sports. I mean, I'm pretty sure my dad said they had me skiing before I could even really walk. They just kind of put me in these boots and on a harness, and off I went. And one of my best friends growing up, Matt, he decided he was going to start competing in snowboarding, and he had been one of the people that had taught me how to snowboard, and he was like, "You should join the team with me. It'll be fun." And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And again, it was just something to do that was fun. And then he got serious. I got more serious about it. I'm very competitive. So one thing about me is if I start doing something, I'm gonna make sure I get real good at it, and I'm trying to be the best. And so yeah, all through high school, that the more we trained and the more we competed, the more serious it got for me. And then I started getting to a place where my parents obviously wanted me to go to university, and I didn't even know what I was going to do. At that point, all I cared about was snowboarding. And so I had made a deal with them that if in my senior year, if I made the national development team, which was kind of the pipeline to the Olympics, then they were cool with me deferring school and chasing that dream. And so that was my plan. And then senior year, I was warming up in a competition. I went off a jump, honestly, way too fast and aggressively, which was par for the course for my behavior at the time. And I had a really bad fall. I broke my back. I snapped my collarbone, dislocated my shoulder, broken ribs, severe concussion. I was lucky to walk. I should have been paralyzed, honestly, the way I fell, and the doctors mentioned that many times how lucky I was. And at this point in my life, faith was not really a part of my life, but I now looking back through the lens of my faith and realizing that he really has been there with me through a lot of things, whether or not I was willing to acknowledge him. That felt like one of the first biggest kind of God moments where, it felt like him saying, "Hey, I know that you think this is what you need to be doing, but I have something else over here that really is meant for you." Because during that healing process, I really turned to music. And when I came out on the other side of that, that injury and healing, my focus had totally shifted. And, I used the music it was therapeutic, whether it was listening to music or writing lyrics and stuff like that. It felt like one of the only things I had during that time when I was just severely depressed. I was in a lot of pain.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
And I felt like everything had just been ripped away from me, like all of these big dreams that I had. And I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But I can see now in hindsight that it was probably one of the most important things that happened to me. And it completely changed my life path. And so, yeah, that was kind of where the shift happened into music.
Isn't it wild, too, to think about, just thinking about God having a hand all along the way, being a highly competent and capable person and someone who's highly competitive, that he didn't just take you out of the knee. He took you all the way down.
He learned he knew, I mean, he made me, so he knows that I don't do subtlety.
Yeah.
Right. I don't need to be told. I need to have it thrown in my face and just like you said, just kind of take you out at the knees. And I mean, it was really scary, and it actually is quite miraculous the way I was able to recover from what should have been such a serious injury. And I mean, there are still some side effects that I deal with physically from the injury, but for the most part, I came out of that really, really well.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so, yeah, he was not subtle with the way he made that shift. And honestly, that's exactly how it had to be.
Right. Yeah. In order to really get you to shift completely, change gears completely and not hold on to a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because you probably could pull off doing a couple things at once or could pull off doing multiple things, but knowing that your whole focus really needed to be towards this, and then knowing what was to come for you afterwards on your music journey. So starting out in Canada, and you really have had a lot of successes with your career there, and then also now stateside. But that transition is its own unique path in many ways of knowing, like, again, I don't want to speak for you, just knowing that you have had certain successes and then you're still kind of pushing for not just matching, but maybe even excelling and pushing past that. How has that affected your mindset when it comes to your career right now, what you've already accomplished versus where you want to be going, and watching, how other people are managing their careers and everything around you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can definitely say that, God and my faith was very much at the forefront of the decision to move to Nashville. For multiple reasons. Some of that we can get into on. I won't go off on that tangent, but I had reached a point, where it felt like there was not a lot for me back home that was like healthy for me, just on the more personal side of things. And yes, my career was definitely thriving. But I wanted to reach a bigger audience. I wanted to tour more. And I a lot of it too came down to creativity and the songwriting side of things. I had gotten to a point where if I wasn't on the road playing shows, then I was in Nashville writing. And so I was barely home anymore. And then when I did go home, it was like I felt like I was trying to like shift back and forth between being two different people. I had started this career that was successful, and then I was going down to Nashville and I was writing, and then I was coming home and feeling like I had to be someone else because nobody else that I was around back home was chasing the same dream as me. And we just had very different lifestyles all of a sudden. And I didn't feel like, I just felt like I was kind of just existing when I was home. I didn't feel like I was focused, and it just no longer felt like I was in the right place anymore. I felt very like a fish out of water because I had really grown to love and thrive in this touring environment and this creative environment and the people I was working with in Nashville. And I made the decision pretty quickly. And I was on tour at the time, and I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to live when I got back from this tour. And I thought, like, wait, why would I even stay in Canada anymore? I was a dual citizen already because my mother's American. And so there was no paperwork. It was just a matter of like, find a place to live, pack up and go. And so I came off the road, rented a U-Haul, packed up my truck and all my stuff within, probably 36 hours. And I got out of there. And I hardly knew anybody, even the girl that I was moving in with. I mean, we just knew each other because she was Canadian too. But like, we really didn't have that much of a foundation of a relationship. But I just felt so compelled, and this extremely strong feeling like I had to get out of there, and I needed to move to Nashville.
Yeah. That's amazing. With that idea that kind of God pulls us along. He has this thread creating us. He has this thread tied to our hearts, and he just kind of inches us along little by little, and shapes our path in order for us to receive him the best way.
Yes.
And then also for us to be able to live out the gifting that he puts in our hearts and our minds and our abilities that he grants us. You have overcome a lot. Personally, I know that you are putting a lot into your music right now, which is really commendable. A lot of people say, being in Nashville a long time, we've heard it all probably. Everyone says that they're authentic. Everybody says that that's their, I'm here for the music, or I really want to tell my heart. And, a lot of people say it, but walking that walk and staying true to yourself. I had the great honor of watching you get baptized this summer. And even that was very authentically you walking down to that beautiful river and, or I guess it's more of a creek, I should say. Yeah. But either way, just in the element, in your element, everything you do is very much almost stubbornly who you are. And that's the way that you walk. And that's the way that God kind of seems to be working through you. When you left Canada, you left behind a more traumatic situation. I know that word's used a lot. And you've been able to write that into your music right now. Is that something that you always have felt comfortable talking about, or is that something that you're more recently comfortable talking about? And where did you feel God in that scenario?
Well, I'll start by saying, sorry, I'm just trying to organize my thoughts in my head. Okay. So honestly, where my faith really started was I was getting out of a very abusive relationship, emotionally, physically. And it was, if you've ever been in a situation of domestic violence or being abused by a partner, it's extremely isolating. And also your whole reality has been distorted because this person has most likely been emotionally and mentally abusing you for a long time before they ever even maybe put their hands on you. Maybe they never even put their hands on you, but that's still abuse, and it's incredibly damaging. And I can say, if I, this is maybe seems like a morbid thing to say, but like if I had to choose between the physical abuse and the emotional and mental abuse, I would choose the physical every time, because those things, thankfully healed relatively quickly and everything. But the emotional damage and the mental damage, we're coming up close on a decade, and I still struggle with some of the after effects of what a relationship, because it doesn't just hurt you. It completely tears down your whole sense of self, your sense of reality, especially when you have someone who is manipulating your reality, gaslighting you about what reality is. You lose complete confidence in yourself and your vision of what things are and what things aren't. And that the effects of that are very long lasting. And, again, I as I mentioned, it can be very isolating, because the problem is when you're in that situation, it's like there's a part of you that knows that it's wrong, but you don't really know how to get out. Either you're just scared, or you lack the self-love and confidence to try and get out, or it's resources, it's money. It can be a number of things. Every situation is different. For me, I shut out a lot of people that loved me, because I knew that if I told them what was happening to me, that I'd be forced to leave. I'd be forced to face what had been happening to me. And I just wasn't ready to do that. I didn't have the emotional energy, I thought, at the time. And so during that process, in the beginning, I suffered by myself a lot. And then I remember one night I'd had this anxiety attack, because I was being stalked and abused still, even after I had left. And I just was living in so much fear. And I remember I just broke down. I was in my room and I was like, man, I guess some people talk to God. And I was so broken and so lost. I would have tried anything if I thought it was going to help. And so I just started praying, and I had no idea what I was doing. I felt so silly, at the time, because I didn't grow up going to church. I'd never even really been to church. I'd never been baptized. I didn't know really anything about faith or God outside of, unfortunately, a lot of bad misrepresentations within, media or film or whatever. And I started praying, and I don't know. I didn't feel as alone. And it became this secret thing I was doing by myself, because I wasn't ready to tell anybody else what had happened to me. It was I didn't even want to say the words out loud, but I could talk to God about it. And the more I talked to God, the more I felt just this more this strength and this kind of guiding force inside of myself. And I just, even when I felt so weak, it was there was always something just pushing me in the right direction and giving me strength that I didn't think that I had. The strength to stay out of the relationship, the strength to go to the police and finally file a report, the strength to deal with people that claim to be my friends, and people around town saying that I lied, doubting me and my story and what I was going through, and the strength to, have to sit there and wait over a year before my court date and living with so much anxiety and fear about him coming after me. And he did come after me after he was arrested. Yeah. He broke his restraining order a month after. He threatened to kill me in front of people in the bar. He just seemed very like unhinged, and it was terrifying. It was the first, I truly was like fearing for my life and for my safety. And so that was another big part of, me moving to Nashville. It was a career choice, but it was also me just needing like a fresh start and peace of mind, and to just get so far away from this place that just no longer felt like home to me. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I had a place there anymore. And I remember, it was so nerve-wracking to move to Nashville. I barely knew anybody. I had a few acquaintances, people that I'd written with or whatever, but I really didn't have anyone. And literally the first night I was in town, I met Lainey Wilson and Casey Tyndall, two of our good friends. And that felt like such a God thing. Like he just said, hey, I know you're scared. I know you feel so alone right now, but I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to do this right away. I'm going to introduce you to like two girls. They're my sisters now. They're my family. And also because they are two of the most faithful and like godly women that you'll ever meet. And I think God knew that I needed that guidance. I needed that human relationship that would tie me to him more. And, and Casey and Lainey were such a big part of my journey to my faith, and just helping me work through it and answering my questions. And
in an unjudging way.
In a very,
expecting you to know everything,
right.
Yeah.
Like I was so nervous, because, well, one, I had never been around people that were so like open and vocal about their faith. It just wasn't that way growing up. And so at first it was like intimidating, and I almost felt like I didn't want to like tell them, be like, hey, so I actually... I don't really know these Bible verses, and I've never been baptized, and this is like kind of a new thing for me. And like, I was so worried I would be judged, or like, and they, we're going to go to church if you want to come with. And I had so much anxiety about it, because I was like, and this sounds silly, but I was like, I don't know what to wear. I don't think I have anything in my closet that would, I'm like, I just know I'm going to show up and everyone's going to look at me and be like, she's never been here before. You know what I mean?
Like a spotlight on your head.
Burst into flames or something when I walk through the doors. Like, but they were just so kind, and there was no judgment there. There was just actually this excitement from both of them to be able to share their faith and talk with me about it. And I think, they've both said too, it in a sense, it kind of renewed and strengthened their faith, because they were now seeing this journey through someone else's eyes, through someone who also, this was not a choice. This was a choice that I made entirely on my own, my faith. It was not, ingrained into me. I was not raised with it. Nobody came and said, hey, this is what you should think, and this is what you should believe. It was a journey that was entirely my own. So in a lot of ways, I feel very blessed that my relationship with God feels very pure, because it's been entirely my choice, and something that I've come to because I truly feel it and believe it, not because I've been indoctrinated with it, or because someone has told me to think a certain way. Sorry, I think I've gotten off on a few tangents, but
no, not at all. I honestly, I feel like, which I mentioned before, that I don't know that I said it this way, but one of my favorite things about you, from even the first day I ever met you, I think at the river, I don't know, or the lake maybe is the first time I ever met you, but that you were just so yourself, and that's something that really matters to me personally when I'm around people, and a lot of people are very much themselves, but that can get shifted and shaped in a lot of ways and expressed in a lot of different ways. But you've held on to that, and a lot of times that can be bred out of trauma and out of challenge. It can either take someone to shift themselves completely, or it can help bring someone completely home to themselves, and help you know who you are so deeply that you have no choice but to carry it with you and throughout your music, throughout your friendships, your marriage now, all these things. And your faith journey is exactly that. I think we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to carry our own faith journey, or it might be intimidating to people that have never been to church before, or kind of curious, but maybe had a bad experience, things like that. To remember and to hear your story, and remember, you sometimes don't even have to do anything. Just being open to God God knows where you're at. God knows where you are.
Yeah.
Just opening that window, opening that door just enough. You don't know have to know how to do it.
Yep.
You don't know have to know where to look or where to turn. Just the simple idea of opening your heart a little bit, opening that window a little bit, and God can truly do the rest.
Yeah.
And drove you into the arms of somewhere that was out of somewhere that wasn't for you anymore. And like you said, wasn't safe for you anymore.
Yep.
Into somewhere that was unknown, but ready for you.
Yeah.
And waiting for you with a soft landing spot.
Well, God, I think, I think that I've become this best version of myself in spite of my trauma and like through God, because I think that truly like my faith, God has given me permission to truly be myself, because for the first time, it's like, because for once I actually don't have to just trust myself about something, because I've spent so much of my life feeling like I could only ever rely on or trust myself. Yeah. And God gave me permission to be everything that I am and to do that fearlessly. And I think the trauma that I've experienced, I look at it now as, because I think I've always felt like this I've had this deep well of like strength and courage, not only to stand up for myself, but for others, and to be kind of like, this is going to sound like so cheesy, but like a warrior for others. I even like when I was a kid, like I was the kid, if I saw somebody getting bullied on the playground, like I was going to be the one that I wanted to go stand up for that kid. You can ask any of our friends, as Lainey likes to say, that I would fight a grizzly bear for her, and that you should probably be concerned for the grizzly bear, But I look at like the trauma that I've been through as something that strengthened me and that gave me a purpose. Like I think that God helped me to see it as, to kind of reframe it and see it as an opportunity to use my experiences and use it to help other people who might be going through the same thing. Because I do think that like, I'm realizing now that, yes, music is my gift, and there's no question about that. But I think I just in the last few years, I realized that this gift God gave me, it's bigger than what I thought. It's not just music. I think music is just kind of almost more the vehicle through which I'm meant to do other things, bigger things. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't want number ones and awards and to sell out big tours. Of course I do. I love music and I love entertaining and I love all of that. And it's a part of who I am. But I also, I realized over the last couple years, it had to have impact beyond just numbers on paper, or beyond just like, concrete successes or, awards, number ones, whatever you want to call it. I knew that I needed to start using the gift of writing songs and telling and storytelling to tell some of my story, some of the darker parts of my story, because I think that sharing that is what's going to help a lot of people more than anything.
Absolutely. And you're doing that very much. I know that we're all created in this bigger way, and just like you said, for others. Remembering that you were created as this kind of warrior, defender, brave, very brave and strong person, knowing that that's how you're created, but also remembering that someone also has your back, and that it's not only one-sided because you're strong enough and because you can for others.
Well, and God continues to show me when I'm on the right path. Every time I pray to him and I say, God, I am trying. I'm trying. I don't know if this is working. Please just give me a sign, something. And there's always something that comes or that happens. And it's, it's a gut feeling, of just trusting. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate. I mean, I think part of our challenge as believers is that this will be a lifetime challenge to continue to remember and have full trust in God and what he has planned for us and what he means for us. And like remembering that sometimes he might be quiet, but that doesn't mean that he's not there, and those are the hard times for sure.
It's an imperfect path that faith takes us on, and it's messy. And when we try to make it clean and nice and just in order, that's usually when we get a little bit of a shakeup. And God's like, no, this is a messy path, actually, because I created you to be full and dimensional, and your story is a good inspiration for others that might be intimidated by the idea of faith, but knowing that God's got that little tug on their heart.
Yeah.
You are absolutely using what you've been through in your music, and currently the song that you have out right now, Boy Who Cries Drunk, is an example of that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you wrote that song? We know where it came from now, but a little bit about the writing process, and then how it feels to have that out for people to listen to.
Yeah. Well, I had written down, I've wanted to write about that experience, and it's been difficult to figure out a way to do that where it's not just, how do I say, like, you have to find a way to write a song where it's not just outright saying it all necessarily, where it's impactful, but it's not, if you make it too dark and too graphic, it's like, well, who's going to want to listen to that? And in order for the song to have impact, you have to find a way to frame it and tell the story in a way that's intriguing and musically brings you in. And so I can't even remember exactly how this came about, but I had the idea for the title, The Boy Who Cried Drunk, based off of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the story. And in my head, it was like, I thought of it as like all the times that an abuser will say, well, it's just because I was drunk, which is never an excuse, And sometimes, in some cases, people who are abusers, sometimes it is an issue of substance abuse, and that is the root of the issue. And there are people that go and seek help, and they recover, and they really are able to move forward in life and address that. And that is, that kind of fixes things, so to speak. But I also know from my own experience that it's usually just an excuse for a much deeper problem, because at the end of the day, generally speaking, whether or not you're intoxicated, if your instinct is to hurt the person that you're with, there's a much deeper issue there than just alcohol. And, in The Boy Who Cried Wolf, it was like he kept calling the villagers saying, oh, there's a wolf. And they all would come running to his rescue every single time until finally, they got tired of it and he saw the consequences of it. And, it was like, oh, he was saying it was a wolf, but really it was a deeper issue of he was just wanting attention, or he was, whatever. And for me, I think the important thing about the way we wrote that song, first of all, is that she leaves in the end. And what I needed women to understand was you can't and you won't fix him. Full stop. You can't and you won't fix him. If he ever has a chance of being fixed, it has to be entirely his own choice, and it will probably come from a pretty devastating moment where he is faced with the choice of continuing what he's doing or doing better. Yeah. And sadly, there's very few that really do make a change in their life. Yeah. And you have to understand, because I know for me, when I was trying to get out, I used to think, well, what if I leave and then he gets better and he's better for someone else and it's not me? It's not going to happen. Let me just tell you, there's a very, very slim chance that he is going to be any different to the next person. And, I think it was just important also for women to understand that domestic violence is not just him punching you in the face or putting his hands on you. In fact, it's very rarely that. It's all the other things. It's, punching holes in the wall and breaking things. And all of that is meant to make you scared. It's meant to intimidate you. It's meant to let you know that wall could and will be you eventually. It's meant to make you scared of them. And safe men do not want or need you to be scared of them. That is not what a healthy relationship looks like. And then the calling over and over and over again, the 56 missed calls at 4 a.m. The reality is a woman who hasn't slept is a lot more likely to give in and to stay and to essentially be too exhausted emotionally and physically to put up a fight and to demand better. And so all of these things that are not like actual hands on you physical abuse, they are abuse, and they are abusing you in a different way. And I would argue in some ways an even more damaging way, a way that's much harder to work through in therapy and to reverse the effects of. And also what I need women to understand is that this is what it looks like until it does become physical, and it will. It will always escalate to that point eventually. And so yeah, I think I wanted to write a song that would get people's attention, that was intriguing as a story in and of itself, in order to get people to really listen and be engaged in the song. But I also wanted it to be empowering to women who are maybe still in it. I wanted them to hear the end of that song where she left and he's the same guy and he's sitting there with no one left to apologize to, because she finally left and he's still doing the same thing, except now you don't have to be the victim of it anymore. Yeah. And it's not your responsibility to fix him, nor can you. When you meet someone that is truly meant to love you and be with you, you don't have to fix them. You don't have to make excuses for their behavior. You don't have to hide who he really is from your family and the people that love you. You can feel genuinely safe and like you're both living in the same reality, because he's not trying to constantly manipulate your view of yourself and what's really going on, which is that he is slowly breaking you down in your confidence, whether it starts with just little comments, like they'll make little comments about other women or your appearance. So it's just little things like that. And then
cuts.
Little things like that. And then you start going like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And maybe you say something to him like, hey, why would you say that to me? Like that hurts my feelings. I'm like, oh my God, like don't be so lame. Like I'm just joking. And now all of a sudden you feel stupid for, asserting that this bothers you. And so then you stop asserting that it bothers you. And so the behavior continues. And before you know it, like he's fully in control of your emotions and your thoughts and everything. And listen, I think I feel confident in saying I'm a strong woman. I'm not someone who's easily taken advantage of. I'm not stupid. And this can happen to any woman. This can happen to any woman that has a good heart, that wants to be loved, and especially a woman who has a high capacity for empathy, because the other thing that will happen is they will always play the victim. As soon as you try to call them out on their behavior or ask them to change, they will suddenly become the victim, and you will immediately shift into this feeling of, okay, I have to help him. I have to save him. I can't leave him now. You can't.
They're counting on that.
Yeah. And that is just another part of the abuse and the manipulation, because the reality is that healthy people that have hurt you are not going to make it about them when you try to discuss the way you've been hurt. They're gonna take accountability, and they're gonna take it upon themselves to go and do the work, to be better, to be a better person, to be a better partner, not turn it around on you and make it about themselves. And so, I just want to open up that conversation about all the little nuances about what abuse looks like and why, because the reality is, if you've never been in that kind of relationship, it is really hard to understand how you get into it, why you stay, and why it can be so incredibly difficult to leave. There are obvious reasons, like I said, resources, money, if there are children involved. Sure. If you feel like leaving truly puts you physically in danger, like those are scenarios that are much more complicated to say, okay, well, you should just leave. But even outside of those complications, just the mental abuse and everything, people don't understand how much you are not living in reality when you're in those relationships, and how difficult it is to shake this reality your abuser has built for you, especially when you've most likely been so isolated from people that love you for so long.
Yeah. It's an awareness for any woman or man that might find themselves in a situation like that, but also anyone that might find themselves as a support system or a friend or a family member of somebody that finds themselves in that situation. And that awareness is something that is so important for all people involved, the whole community surrounding any type of incident or ongoing relationship like that. You have come, I really appreciate your vulnerability, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you so much. But you've been through a physical trauma at a young age. I mean, senior year in high school is pretty big, changing your whole thought process of what your career path is going to be, and then having to physically recover. That's no small thing. A relationship trauma that you've been through and overcome so strong in such a strong way and so well. I know you're continuing to always kind of work on yourself and improve. You have been taken from a very small relationship with God, starting with just, hey, I think you're there. Let's chat for a minute. I've heard people do this. I have a little small conversation. Watching those things happen, meeting God, for the first time that way, finding your way to Nashville, finding your way into a community that's been just has helped foster your relationship with God, but also musically till now. So you've just were baptized this summer. You're in a really great relationship with a good man.
Yes.
A strong, good man that does treat you well and is the opposite of what you had been through. How do you feel like your relationship with God is right now and where that's taking you? I know you've got another song coming out by the time we are talking about this, or that y'all are watching this and listening to it. It's already going to be out. Where are you with God right now? How are you figuring out your faith right now? How are you fostering your faith right now? And how is that tied in with what you see coming for you, the busy schedule you have ahead, but all the other things that you want to be accomplishing going forward?
Yeah, I think where I'm at with God right now, I mean, part of it, as we talked about earlier, I think will be a lifelong challenge for me of just, continuing to have faith that he does have a plan for me. As we talked about in this industry, not only is it incredibly difficult to not, you yourself, compare yourself to other careers and other artists and their trajectory and the way their career is being built, but you also have other people within the industry, whether it's labels, radio, your team, whatever, where you are constantly being compared to other people's success and other people's journey. And so it can be really, really challenging for me to feel like I'm not doing enough, or like it's just not going to happen. And I start panicking and thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I going to do if this music thing doesn't work out? You know what I mean? and I have to remind myself that God always has and always will make everything happen in his time, and his time will be right. And I just have to be patient. And sometimes I'm like, you made me, God, so specifically how impatient I am. And I guess that will be our lifelong little fun relationship we have, that you will be testing that patience. But I think also right now, I just, especially since my baptism, I am really just trying to be more intentional and more consistent in my faith, and, diving more into the scriptures. And I told you I joined a Bible study, and just doing more reading and more learning about, because for me, it kind of started the opposite way of a lot of people, where they grow up in church with scripture and sermons and a lot of the written word and the sort of practical, I guess, side of faith. Whereas for me, it just, as they say, it started with the mustard seed, and just this like kind of what I thought was maybe just speaking out into the abyss, not knowing was going to happen. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to be, I guess, like a good Christian, and be, and just make sure that I'm never leaving him out of my daily life. And especially because sadly we live in I work in an industry that often does leave him out. And there are a lot of dark sides to the industry that I work in, and there are a lot of paths set out for me every day that I have to be mindful of, keeping him first in the decisions that I make. And, I have to also remind myself, one of my biggest prayers to God all the time is not only for, to have success and to use my music to help people and everything, but I pray all the time. I say, God, I want to be a strong character. I want to be a good person. I want, because I know that, I think a lot about when I'm on my deathbed or when I'm gone, what people are going to say about me.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to talk about the money I made or the awards that I won. They're going to talk about the way I made them feel. Right. They're going to talk about whether or not I was able to have a positive impact. Was I there for them? Did I help them? Did I change their life for the better? And a lot of times, in order to become that kind of person, in order to become a person of strong faith and of strong character, life is going to be harder. You're going to have to take the more difficult path more often than not. And I have to remind myself that is something I am asking for. Yeah. And I have to remind myself of what that path is going to look like sometimes. So, yeah.
That's that. Well, in Romans it says, and this is something, and my journey of what I've, parts of what I've been through in life. And I share very much that there's, when you are someone that hits not just little hiccups, but hits big walls many times, you overcome it just a little bit more every time. And it's almost like, am I inviting this in by being strong? Like,
right.
I think I'm going to be weak today.
I'm not actually that strong. Yeah, God. Could you give me one of these other paths? They seem a lot easier.
That seems smooth sailing over there. But yeah. But in Romans, it talks about, one of my favorite scriptures speaks exactly to that we know, or God tells us, that we can rejoice in our sufferings because our sufferings breed endurance. Endurance builds character, which is exactly what you're talking about. And character breeds hope. And true, lasting pureness, you said before we started this, that you feel that there's a pureness to your faith that's really got such a sweet little nugget to hold on to. But true, lasting hope isn't just a like, oh, I hope this happens or I hope that happens, and that's a fun hope. But the real, true, deep hope that we can really hold on to, that's everlasting, is a hope that comes out of overcoming and letting that build a character in ourselves that is useful to others and can hold on to a hope regardless of our surroundings and our situations. And that's something that you cannot buy, you can't find. It happens through you. And
sometimes I'm like, God, listen, my character is built. Okay,
we're here, God.
It is built. I'm good. If we could just
we have arrived. Let's chill for a minute. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the way you are walking through the world. I'm grateful that you're in my world, and watching what you're doing is amazing, and hearing you talk about it. You're an incomparable person, and your character is strong and amazing, and the way you're sharing it is important and purposeful. And I'm excited for all the things you have coming up, which is a lot. And don't forget to go to the Instagram page after this. We'll have a couple other little things. There'll be links to your music and what's out right now. And you are just kind of putting back-to-back purposeful music out, which is also really, and fun. Like, she's got a ton of fun stuff too. I mean, this is not all just songs about overcoming.
We'll throw in a truck or a tailgate or, whatever here and there.
You can party with Meghan, that's for sure. But hearing your faith is something that your faith doesn't have to look a certain way. Being a good Christian is incorporating God into whatever your real life looks like, who you really truly are, not who we think we should be or what we want to be. And you've done that. And you've shared that today, and I appreciate you. For just to kind of wrap up here, what would you like people to hold in their heart after listening to this, or maybe take a step in either their creativity or in their faith journey, wherever they are? whatever vocation they're at, whatever their family situation is, whatever they're doing in life, creatively or by works of faith, how would you love to encourage someone just today in their day to day as they're listening to this?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I would say, I think if you are in the thick of something right now and it's breaking you, I want you to think about another time in your life where you thought you would break and you didn't. And then think about what that moment did for you in hindsight and the ways it made you better, kinder, stronger, smarter, any of those things. And just remember that everything that happens in your life is temporary, but God's love for you and his plans for you, they're strong, they're real, they are not finite, and nothing lasts forever, not the good or the bad. So when the good comes, soak in every second, and when the bad comes, know that you just need to dig in. Don't lose who you are, and don't lose your faith in that time. And that those are going to be the things and the moments when you get older and when you're looking back on your life that you're going to be able to feel pride about. I think. I don't know if that was good. Beautiful and important. A really good reminder. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time and just and your music and everything about you. It's wonderful. And go check out. I appreciate everything about you. Well, thank you. Check her out, MeghanPatrick.com, right? It's MeghanPatrickMusic.com is my website, and then Meg Patrick Music on all my social media. Perfect. Go find it. The links are below. Share it with your friends and find us on Instagram for a couple more little tidbits. Thank you again. And thank you all for tuning in and watching or listening, I should say, for Two In A Pew Conversations on Faith and Creativity. We will see you next time.